Hello students, I am Dr. Srinivas. I am from the Department of Orthopedics. I am your teacher today. I will be teaching about port spine and Pott's paraplegia. Tuberculosis not only affects the lungs, it can also affect the bones and joints. That is, it affects the skeletal system. So this is called as skeletal tuberculosis. In skeletal tuberculosis, the spine is the most common site. It involves around 50% of the skeletal tuberculosis cases. It is still a very common entity in India because of the poor socio-economic status. It is a chronic disease which can last for 1 to 3 years or even more. Tuberculosis in the spine was first described by Percival Pott, hence it is called as Pott's disease or Pott's spine. The spinal tuberculosis most commonly occurs at the thoracolumbar junction. Coming to the anatomy, first development of the vertebra. Each vertebra is formed from two adjacent sclerotomes. The lower half of one vertebra and the upper half of the vertebra below it, along with the intervening disc, develop from the same sclerotome. Hence, they have a common blood supply. I will explain this in the figure. See, this is the artery which supplies both the adjacent vertebra. The infections, they come through the arteries and they involve the embryological section, that is, it affects one sclerotome. So this is the paradiscal variety of TB spine. You can see that two vertebrae are involved even though infection is coming from one artery. Coming to superior view of the vertebra, you have to remember these 5 important structures: body of the vertebra, the pedicle, the lamina, transverse process and spinous process. The lamina and the pedicle, they form the vertebral arch. The same structures, they can be seen in the superolateral view. Anatomy of the thoracic spine. In the thoracic region, there is kyphosis. The alignment is in kyphosis. Also, the spinal canal is narrow. The facets are oriented transversely. That is why the rotations movements occurs at the thoracic spine. In the thoracic region, there are ribs and the sternum which increase the stability of the spine. Anatomy of lumbar spine. Here there is lordosis in alignment. The vertebral bodies are larger, the facets are oriented vertically, and the movements which take place in the lumbar region are the flexion and extension, that is the bending movements, forward bending and backward bending. Surface anatomy. Spinous process is the accessible part of the vertebra to palpation. Hence, this is used to localize the level of the vertebra. The most prominent spinous process at the base of the neck corresponds to T1 vertebra, that is the thoracic, first vertebra of the thoracic region. At the level of the spine of the scapula is situated the D3 vertebra. At the lower angle of the scapula is situated the D7 vertebra. Floating grip corresponds to T12 vertebra. At the level of the iliac crest, we have the L4 vertebra. At the level of the posterior superior iliac spine, it corresponds to the S2 vertebra. Coming to relation between the spinal bony vertebra and the spinal cord segment. The significance of this I will tell you. For example, knee reflex. The knee reflex corresponds to L3 and L4 of the spinal cord segment. But this, suppose there is a lesion above this level, then the knee reflex will be exaggerated because it becomes a upper motor neuron type of lesion. Suppose there is a fracture of the T2 vertebra, second thoracic vertebra. So the knee reflex takes place in the L3 and L4 level. So because there is the spinal cord is damaged at the T2 level, so it is a upper motor neuron lesion and the knee reflex will be exaggerated. Now suppose the L2 vertebra is fractured. What will happen? Will the knee reflex be exaggerated? No, because at the L2 vertebral level there is no spinal cord, only the cauda equina is present. The spinal cord ends at L1. So even if the L2 vertebra is fractured, you don't get a upper motor neuron lesion because the spinal cord ends at L1. So if L2 vertebra is fractured, you might think that because the knee reflex root level is L3, L4 and L2 is fractured, you might think it is upper motor neuron type of lesion and your knee reflex has to be exaggerated. But it doesn't happen because the spinal cord ends at L1. So that is why you should know the relationship between the vertebral bone and the spinal cord segment. What are the levels? So if the cervical vertebra is fractured, suppose C5 vertebra is fractured, you have to add one vertebral level and it will correspond to C6 spinal cord segment. So similarly, if it is at the lower dorsal vertebra, add 3. And at the level of D12, all the lumbar segments will be over, and at L1 the spinal cord ends and all the sacral segments will be over. So you can note at the L1 level the spinal cord is ended and below that you find only the cauda equina, only the roots are present. Pathology. This is because of the Mycobacterium tubercle bacilli, the human type. The primary focus is the lungs or the mediastinal lymph nodes, and it spreads through the hematogenous route, that is through the blood and blood vessels, and skeletal tuberculosis is always a secondary, and spine tuberculosis can come either from the hematogenous route or it can come from the lungs, or it can come from the paravertebral venous plexus, that is the Batson's plexus, from the abdominal tuberculosis. And a gap of 1 to 3 years is usually required to spread from the primary tuberculosis to the secondary skeletal tuberculosis. The commonest presentation is the paradiscal type. So this is the paradiscal type, adjacent to the disc. This is the tuberculous affection of the vertebra. The part of the vertebral body adjacent to the disc are involved. The infection reaches through the blood vessels. Each vessel supplies the lower part of the upper vertebra and the upper part of the lower vertebra. So you can see the infection is coming and going to the upper vertebra, lower part, and lower vertebra, upper part. This explains why the disease is commonest in the paradiscal region. So this can be a viva question. TB can involve any vertebral body from the atlas to the coccyx. In the cervicodorsal region 17%, dorsal and dorsolumbar region it affects 54%. Spinal tuberculosis most commonly occurs in the thoracolumbar junction because these are the four reasons. Because there is a large amount of cancellous bone. Cancellous bone is more prone for infection when compared to cortical bone. The degree of weight bearing is more in this area, and minimal amount of movement occurs in this area because it is the junction, and this area is very it is in proximity to the thoracic duct and the Batson's venous plexus. In the Batson's venous plexus there are no valves, so the abdominal tuberculosis can spread to this thoracolumbar region. And thoracic duct, because it transmits the lymph, where a lot of bacteria and lymphocytes will be present, and this bacteria can lodge in the thoracolumbar junction. Coming to the microscopic picture, there are two types. One is the caseating type, the other is the proliferating type. In caseating type, there will be presence of caseation, which is more common in children and young people. And in proliferating type, it is seen in adults, and here there will be no caseation and cellular proliferation. Here there will be presence of tubercle or the granuloma, where you can see the epithelioid cells which are characteristic of granuloma. And types of lesions based on the anatomical location. One is the paradiscal type, which is the most common type. Then is the central type, then the anterior type, posterior type affecting the appendiceal parts, that is the lamina, the pedicle, transverse process, spinous process, and true articular type affecting the intervertebral joint, that is the facet joints. This you will see in the figure also. See the paradiscal variety, central variety, anterior type, the posterior type or the appendiceal type. Again, one is the paradiscal type, second central type, third anterior type, fourth is the appendiceal type, this one, and this is the arthritis type, fifth one. Other things, there will be hyperemia when there is infection. This can lead to osteoporosis. And there will be collapse. Collapse is because of the gravity, muscle action, and necrosis. The line of weight bearing is anterior to the vertebra. So the anterior part is more compressed, and this gives rise to the wedging in the vertebra. This wedging will be absent or very less in cervical and the lumbar region. In children, the destruction is early and severe. Anterior wedge collapse. See, the anterior portion is damaged and it can collapse, and this forms a wedge shape. There are two types of collapse. One is the wedge collapse and another is the concertina collapse. In wedge collapse, the anterior part is more destroyed and collapsed, so it forms a wedge, a triangle shape. You can note that the disc is normal because this is the central type, and here the collapse is equal in the anterior as well as in the posterior. So it is a concertina collapse. Here also the disc space is normal. The disc is normal because this is the central type. Cold abscess. This is the commonest complication of the Pott's tubercular spine, which is seen in 20% of the cases. The cold abscess, it migrates along the fascial tunnels and the neurovascular bundles. That is, it chooses the path of least resistance. This is the paravertebral abscess. This is the psoas abscess. Pathology. When the body of the vertebra collapses, the collection of tubercular debris consisting of granulation tissue and the caseous material and the disintegrated bone marrow along with tubercle bacilli and leukocytes. These are the constituents of the cold abscess. The walls of these cold abscesses are covered with tubercular granulations. Spread of the cold abscess. It can spread anteriorly, so that is called prevertebral abscess. You can go to the sides lateral, so that is the paravertebral abscess. It can spread posteriorly into the canal and compress the spinal cord, and it can spread along the neurovascular bundle and it can reach the anterior chest wall. Healing. Once the antitubercular treatment and surgical treatment has been done, it heals and the lytic areas are replaced by new bone. The adjacent vertebra undergo fusion, that is ankylosis. You know that there are two types of ankylosis. One is the bony ankylosis and the fibrous ankylosis. Bony ankylosis occurs in pyogenic infections, whereas tuberculosis causes fibrous ankylosis. But in the spine, tuberculosis also gives rise to bony ankylosis. In all other joints, tuberculosis forms only fibrous ankylosis. This you have to remember. It can be asked in the viva. Then when there is destruction of the vertebra, there is alteration in the shape. This is permanent. Even though new bone is being formed after healing, the shape cannot be reversed. What are the clinical features? Symptoms and signs. Symptoms are constitutional symptoms. There will be fever, night sweats, loss of appetite, loss of weight, and generalized weakness. It is usually seen in children and young adults. Patient will have pain in the back and girdle pains. Patient will have stiffness of the back. He will complain of loss of function, that is, he cannot stand, he might not be able to walk, or he cannot move the legs, that is paraplegia. There will be motor deficit, sensory deficit, bowel and bladder symptoms, then deformities like kyphosis and gibbous. Kyphosis is nothing but forward bending of the spine. Swellings, that is cold abscesses, and symptoms of primary tuberculosis. So when lungs are affected, patient will have cough, hemoptysis, cervical lymphadenopathy, and abdominal pain and abdominal swellings. Coming to the signs. On inspection, there will be Alderman's gait, which is nothing but the gait will be slow, short step, and patient tries to avoid jerky movements to avoid pain. There will be muscle wasting and spasm of the muscles. There can be deformities like knuckle, gibbous, and kyphus. Knuckle means it is a small bony prominence because only one vertebra is destroyed. Gibbous, when there are 2 or 3 vertebrae are destroyed. Kyphus, when many vertebrae are destroyed. Swellings like cold abscesses. This can be present in many parts. It can be seen in the thigh or lesser trochanter or greater trochanter or Petit's triangle, femoral triangle or the chest wall. On palpation, patient will have tenderness in the spine, tenderness of the vertebra. Motor weakness or complete motor loss can be seen. Partial weakness is called paraparesis and complete loss is called paraplegia. And sensory deficits can be elicited. Reflexes can be absent if it is a lower motor neuron type of lesion, and reflexes will be exaggerated in upper motor neuron type of lesions. And clonus is nothing but over exaggeration. Patient will have bladder and bowel dysfunction. These clinical pictures show the severe kyphotic deformities. Spread of the cold abscess to the cervical, from the cervical region it can go behind the prevertebral fascia, it can go to the posterior edge of the sternomastoid, it can form retropharyngeal abscess. From the mediastinum it may gravitate along the trachea, esophagus or pleural cavity. The thoracic region, it can spread posteriorly and press the spinal cord and cause paraplegia. It can spread laterally into the pleural space causing effusion. It may remain prevertebral, forming the prevertebral abscess. From here it can spread to through the lateral aortic ligament and it can present in the anterior abdominal wall. Through the medial aortic ligament it can form the psoas abscess and reach up to the lesser trochanter. Through the median aortic ligament it can form a lumbar abscess. Spread from the lumbar region it can form the psoas abscess, it can form swelling at the iliac crest, that is in the Petit's triangle. Along the femoral vessels it can reach even up to the thigh. It can form a gluteal abscess and it can reach the iliac crest and the Petit's triangle. Then coming to movements will be restricted, that is the spine has become rigid and they are painful. Special tests are the Coin test and the anvil test. Coin test, put a coin on the ground and tell the patient to lift it. A normal person will bend his spine and get it, whereas a patient with TB spine, he will keep his back straight and he will bend his legs and take the coin. Anvil test, you thump on the head, the patient will feel pain in the back because the force has got transmitted. In a normal person there will be no pain, whereas in a TB spine patient when you thump the head. So this is the anvil test. And coming to paraplegia, paraplegia is of 4 grades. Grade 1, normal, because the patient is walking normally and he is unaware of the weakness because it is very mild, whereas the clinician can detect it because there is change in the tendon reflexes. They become brisk or clonus can be present. And second grade is the spastic paresis. Here there is clumsiness in the walking and clinician can note the deficit in the motor deficit, that is the power instead of 5/5 it can be 4/5 or 3/5. Then spastic paralysis, here it is severe and the patient becomes bedridden. In addition you can find sensory deficit. Fourth grade is the flaccid paralysis. Here it becomes flaccid and there is involvement of both the pyramidal tract and the extrapyramidal tract. Patient is not only bedridden, he also gets painful flexor spasms of the involved muscles, and there can be bowel and bladder involvement. Clinical types: early onset type and the late onset type. Early onset type, paraplegia occurs within 2 years of involvement of the spinal tuberculosis. Late onset is after 2 years. The causes are different and prognosis is also different. Causes of early onset paraplegia: inflammatory causes, edema, caseous material, and pus along with granulation tissue. This is the most common cause of paraplegia. Mechanical causes are the tubercular debris, sequestra, internal gibbous, and these two are extrinsic causes. Coming to the intrinsic causes, can be because of infarction of the cord. There is endarteritis, and another intrinsic cause is the granuloma formation inside the spinal cord. Here there is no bony destruction, and this granuloma will cause paraplegia. This is like a tumor, so it is called as a spinal tumor syndrome. Here the X-rays will be normal. Late onset paraplegia. This can be because of recurrence, internal gibbous, or fibrous septae after the healing. After the in the general examination, you have to detect any primary lesions in the lungs or the cervical lymphadenopathy. You have to detect both active lesions and the healed lesions. Also detect diabetes, hypertension, jaundice, because these can affect the treatment. If there is jaundice, you cannot give anti-tubercular drugs. Some anti-tubercular drugs should not be given in liver diseases, and it should not be given for a long time. Then patient can have other clinical features because of the complications. The patient has tubercular meningitis, then he will have headache, neck stiffness, vomiting, etc. Then amyloidosis can present with like hepatomegaly, splenomegaly. Then prolonged immobilization, patient will have stiffness in all the joints, and there will be pressure sores. Patient can have urinary tract infection. Patient can have hypostatic pneumonia. Investigations have to be done. If there is low hemoglobin has to be tested to see anemia. Total count can show leukocytosis. ESR will be increased. Differential count shows lymphocytosis. X-ray of the thoracolumbar spine, AP view and the lateral view. These findings I will tell later. Mantoux test. If it is negative, then it rules out tuberculosis. Sputum examination can show acid-fast bacilli, AFB, that is the tubercular bacilli. Then FNAC or fine needle aspiration cytology or a open biopsy. Can use a Craig needle, it is a thick needle, and lateral approach can be done. The histopathological findings gives the confirmatory diagnosis of tuberculosis. CT and MRI can be done. This I will discuss later. Other investigations are aspiration of the cold abscess. This can demonstrate acid-fast bacilli. Guinea pig inoculation culture, not usually done. Chest X-ray shows many tubercular findings. Then bone scan, myelography, and serology tests like ELISA test. They can detect both antigen and the antibody. Coming to the X-ray features. Paradiscal type is the most common. The earliest finding is rarefaction, which are present on either side of the intervertebral disc space. When the disc space is destroyed, there will be narrowing of the disc space. Haziness of the end plates, vertebral end plates, that is adjacent to the disc. They will become hazy. And lytic destruction at the anterior vertebral end plate, and there can be destruction of the vertebral body proper. This can lead to collapse, and deformity will be present, that is the kyphus deformity, gibbous deformity, and knuckle. And abscess shadow can be seen on the X-ray. The shape will be different in different regions of involvement. Sclerotic reactive bone formation can be seen in the X-ray when the healing process has started. Ankylosis is also a healing sequelae, which is nothing but fusion of the adjacent vertebra. And unusual signs can be seen in the X-ray. They are the aneurysmal sign. Because of the pulsation of the aorta, it can destroy the weak bone, and this can be seen in the X-ray. That is the aneurysmal sign. Knuckle is nothing but a bony lump, bony prominence when one vertebra is involved or destroyed. Gibbous is 2 or 3 vertebrae are involved. Angular kyphus, 3 or 4 vertebrae are destroyed. Rounded kyphus, when more than 4 vertebrae are affected due to tuberculosis. Cold abscesses shadow. Paravertebral abscess can be seen as a bird nest appearance. It is a fusiform in shape. There can be widening of the mediastinum, retropharyngeal abscess, and psoas abscess can be seen in the X-rays. See, this is the fusiform shaped paravertebral abscess. This X-ray, you can detect the destruction of the cervical 5th vertebra. Here paravertebral shadow. This is the paravertebral shadow adjacent to the D9, D10 vertebra. And here you can see 2 vertebrae have been destroyed and collapsed. CT scan. This can detect even small abscesses which are missed on the X-rays. CT scan is also helpful in a posterior spinal disease. That is, when the lamina, spinous process, when these are involved, they are called as posterior spinal disease. These are difficult to be seen in the X-rays. And also lesions in the craniovertebral junction, cervicodorsal junction, sacroiliac joints. These are difficult to detect in the X-rays. This can be detected in CT scan. And they are also useful in a spinal tumor syndrome, because the X-ray is normal here, but CT can pick up sequestrum and bony ridge which are pressing the cord. This is the CT image. You can see the transverse process and the body of the vertebra it is affected by the tuberculosis, and X-ray cannot detect this. Here also you can find small destruction of the bone which can be missed in the X-ray and picked up in the CT. MRI. MRI is the investigation of choice when there is spinal cord involvement. This will show the type of compression and the extent of compression. Ultrasound can detect tubercular abscess in lumbar vertebral disease. It can detect psoas abscess. Differential diagnosis. Differential diagnosis of back pain would be traumatic causes like fractures, or secondaries or myeloma, prolapsed intervertebral disc, ankylosing spondylitis. All these are differential diagnosis when there is back pain. When there is a neurological deficit, the DDs will be tumors, traumatic causes, and secondaries in the spine. The features and investigations you can read in your free time. Coming to the treatment, conservative treatment and surgical treatment. In conservative treatment, in the stage of recumbency, that is still when the patient is not allowed to walk, the treatment would be bed rest and antitubercular drugs. And in the stage of ambulation, patient has to be continued with antitubercular drugs, and mobilization is allowed with support. You can either use a spinal POP jacket with the help of plaster of Paris, or you can put braces like Ash brace or Taylor brace. And in the stage of convalescence, that is after 3 or 4 months, the patient can walk without support, and antitubercular drugs of course should be continued till 9 months, 12 months, or even few years, depending on the different patients. Short-term chemotherapy. Chemotherapy should be given for 9 months. Initially, first 2 months, intensive phase where 4 drugs are given: INH, rifampicin, pyrazinamide, and ethambutol. And then next 7 months will be the maintenance phase where you give only 2 drugs, INH and rifampicin. Then reassessment is done every 3 to 6 months. Clinical examination, blood investigations, and radiological investigations. All of them are done to reassess whether the patient is improving or deteriorating. Patient can deteriorate if it is a drug-resistant tuberculosis. Cold abscesses. Management of cold abscesses is by aspiration or evacuation, that is incision and drainage. When you are draining, it should be a non-dependent drainage. That is, you should not do a incision or aspiration from the lower part, inferior part. It has to be done from the superior part. Otherwise, if you do from the lower part, there will be continuous discharge and it can become a sinus. To prevent this sinus formation, the drainage aspiration or incision, evacuation should be done in the non-dependent areas, that is from the upper part, superior part. Of course, you have to improve the general condition by giving nutritious food, high protein diet, supplement with multivitamin capsules, then hematinics like iron syrup. Then what are the indications for surgery? After conservative treatment, if it fails, you have to do a surgery. What are the absolute indications? Will be if there is no response to conservative treatment for more than 1 month, or if the patient has presented with grade 3 and grade 4 paraplegia or rapid onset paraplegia, and patient presenting 6 months after the paraplegia. Other relative indications and rare indications you can read in your free time. What are the surgeries that can be done? Are the costotransversectomy, also called as the Menard's operation. Here the transverse process is excised and the adjacent rib is excised. The second is the anterolateral decompression or the anterolateral debridement. It is called as Seddon's operation or the Kapner's operation. This is the most common surgery that is done. The third is the radical operation called as the modified Hong Kong's operation. Here anterior decompression and spinal fusion is done. In anterolateral decompression, you also remove the pedicle, some part of the body. But here you are taking the anterior parts, that is the body, the anterior part of the body, central body, all these are removed and decompressed, debrided, and spinal fusion is encouraged. Then posterior spinal fusion, that is only the posterior parts, that is lamina, spinous process, lamina, these are fused. Examples are Albis fusion, Hibbs fusion, and combined circumduction fusion, where anterior and posterior parts are fused. This I'll show in the figure. All this I'll show in the figure. Then laminectomy. Laminectomy is done only when there is a posterior spinal disease, when tuberculosis is there only in the posterior parts, that is spinous process, lamina. Here only laminectomy is enough. This is costotransversectomy. So this portion is removed, the transverse process and the adjacent rib. In anterolateral decompression, not only the rib, also the pedicle and the part of the body of the vertebra, all these things are removed, debrided, and decompression of the cord is done. This is Kappener's or Seddon's operation. Hong Kong's operation. Here this is the anterior, or it is anterior decompression, anterior parts. The body is removed. The damaged or the destroyed body is removed. And there is anterior fusion. Okay, coming to the posterior fusion comes the Albie's fusion. See, only the spinous process is split and graft is applied to the adjacent multiple spinous processes by a single cortical graft, and all these vertebra, they fuse and form a single bone, and movement does not occur. This is the diseased portion, tuberculous portion of the vertebra. Now we are fusing 5 vertebra. This is the posterior view. This is the spinous process, and these are the lamina. So in between all the lamina we put multiple corticocancellous chip bone grafts and fuse all the adjacent 4 or 5 vertebrae and cause this is Hibbs fusion. Okay, post-operative treatment. After the surgery, do continue the anti-tubercular drugs, put a POP jacket or for about 6 to 8 weeks, then continue with the Taylor's brace for 1 year and keep on reviewing periodically and to assess whether recovery is happening or there is a relapse. Complications of TB spine are cold abscess seen in 20% cases, neurological compression, that is the spinal cord can get compressed or the nerve roots can get compressed, paraplegia when there is total paralysis of both the lower limbs, then tubercular meningitis, miliary tuberculosis, these are the other complications, amyloidosis can happen, and prolonged immobilization can give rise to joint stiffness, pressure sores, urinary tract infection and hypostatic pneumonia. Thank you all for your attention. These are the main questions that can be asked in the exam. These are some of the short notes that can be asked in the theory exam. These are the questions that can be asked in the Viva. Thank you.